Hi, I'm Miss Cobb. I am your student teacher. I'm from Lindsay Wilson, and I was supposed to student teach with you this semester. Some of you guys may remember me from a couple of the observations that I did in your classroom. And when I was there, I loved your class and I enjoyed you guys so much. And I was looking forward to spending the rest of the semester with you guys, but unfortunately, due to the circumstances, I'm not going to get to. So instead, I'm going to make a video lesson. And this lesson is over figurative language. I love figurative language. It is my favorite. So hopefully you guys will love it too. Let's just start out with the basic definition of figurative language. But before we even get started with the definition, go ahead guys, and if you're on Google, you can pause this video. Go ahead and get your worksheet that goes with this. It'll be labeled worksheet in your Google Classroom. Go ahead and get your notes. You can pull them up, have them off to the side, maybe read through them before you watch this whole video. And have your notes out. You can print them or you can fill it out afterwards. Because all the links to the videos that I'm going to put into this one big video will be available on your note sheet. And some of you guys hopefully will contact me with questions or maybe even about this video, hopefully. Because this is the only contact I'm going to get with you guys, I won't get to spend the year teaching you like I thought. So first, let's go ahead and move on with the lesson with figurative language. Let's look at just the definition of figurative language. Figurative language uses figures of speech to be more persuasive and impactful. Figurative speech and figurative language is everywhere. It's in what we say, it's in our literature, you've probably seen it on Netflix, on Spotify, in our music. You've seen it everywhere. And we're going to look at some of the most common forms of figurative language. There are 6. Alliteration, which I'm sure you guys have heard of, simile, metaphor, personification, onomatopoeia, and hyperbole. These are our 6 we're learning about today. There are many out there. We will cover a couple more in some of our other videos. Of course, they will not be these kind of video lessons. Maybe they're ed puzzles, maybe they're readings, maybe there are different forms and there are different ways that we are going to work on this to try to make it a little more entertaining for you, because I know we're going through a hard time right now. So our first one we're going to look at, our first figure of speech or figurative language, is alliteration. I'm sure tons of you guys have heard this before, maybe in 5th grade, maybe in 4th grade. Alliteration is a device in which a number of words having the same first consonant, or those non-vowel words, occur close together in a series. So for example, maybe you guys have heard tongue twisters, where words sound very similar because the first letter of that word is repeated over and over and over in every word. So our first example that we have, and if you have your notes out, if you don't, just listen, is but a better butter makes a batter better. And note that every word except for A started with the letter B. This is alliteration. And here's some common, really short examples that you guys probably have seen. Maybe you have one in your town, or maybe you've seen them somewhere else. Dunkin' Donuts. This is a tactic that they use to persuade people to buy donuts and coffee. Dunkin' Donuts, it's a catchy name. Another one is Best Buy. The B in the beginning, best and buy, is our alliteration. And Coca-Cola, which I'm sure if you guys even have one available, you could look at it and notice that Coca-Cola starts with 2 C's. And now we're going to go ahead and we're going to go to the little video in this video.
'Cause for the first time in forever, there'll be music, there'll be light. For the first time in forever, I'll be dancing through the night.
Darling, it's been a long, cold, lonely
noticed in this video, which were all songs, maybe ones you've heard in movies, maybe ones that your parents have played because they're a little bit older, they have alliteration. But their alliteration is not every word. It may be every other. It may be every two words. So the first song that I noticed on mine, and guys, make sure we go ahead and have our worksheets out with this because we're about to fill them out. But the first song that I noticed was the Frozen song. I love the movie Frozen, so of course that one got my attention first. And the line goes, "For the first time in forever." So, for example, in our worksheet that we have, there is a box labeled 1 alliteration. In that box, you will write your example. Maybe you write "for the first time in forever." That's the line from the Frozen song. That's our example of alliteration. And then underline the letters in the alliteration. So underline F for the first. There's our next alliteration, our next consonant. That underline the F in first. Time in forever. Forever is our last one. And that song goes on and there are more lyrics, but guys, you only have to write about a sentence as long as you get the figurative language that we're discussing in the example. So that goes in our first box. In our second box, we are going to describe what alliteration does. Does it make it catchy? Does it draw our attention? And so the song "For the First Time in Forever," that F sound that is repeating, that F consonant sound that is repeating over and over, it catches our attention. And it's just a really catchy song and draws in our attention. The next song that I identified and that I saw was the Katy Perry song. Because, that's what I listened to in my childhood. So, of course, I thought, why not? And the song goes, "Fine, fresh, fierce." Those are all letters that start with F. Now, of course, it doesn't always have to start with F. So, for example, Dunkin' Donuts, that starts with a D. It's anything but a vowel. So, you will not have that word A repeated in the front. It's got to be a consonant or those non-vowel words that repeat. And it's that first consonant, that first little bit in the word. So, for example, Coca-Cola. Co. It's not just the first letter. Okay, guys. Now we're going to move on to our next one, which is simile. I'm sure many of you guys have heard of simile. I personally have heard it. I know you probably should have heard it in 5th grade, maybe even 4th, and maybe you've even talked about it with Miss Eastham. But simile makes a comparison by showing similarities between two different things. A simile uses like or as to directly compare two separate things. So, for example, and I have these great examples on this note sheet for you guys to look at. Her cheeks are red like a rose. Red, roses. So we thinking of roses are normally red. And her cheeks must be really red if they're red like a rose. Another one would be, he is as funny as a monkey. Well, monkeys, they're really funny. They like to climb and fall and goof around, so you would think he's really funny. It's comparing him to make a point. And another one that I really liked is, he is as cunning as a fox. Well, fox are known for being cunning and sly and getting out of traps, so we would assume that he's really cunning. Maybe he's really smart to get out of those traps. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to watch clips from movies.
Hey, you like impressions?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, just like in rehearsals, gentlemen. So what are we? Take a guess.
Oh, I've seen one of those.
I'm a fish with a nose like a sword.
Wait,
It's a swordfish.
Oh, hey, clown boy, let the lady guess.
We have to do something. We can't just let him march on the valley and take his revenge. He'll...
Your mind is like this water, my friend. When it is agitated, it becomes difficult to see. But if you allow it to settle, the answer becomes clear.
Do you want a chocolate? I could eat about 1.5 million of these. My mom always said life was like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're gonna get.
So in this movie, one that kind of drew my attention is Nemo. It's a classic. Everyone loves Nemo. And the simile goes, fish like a nose with a sword. So they're comparing the nose to a sword. And of course, it's a swordfish. And there are a couple more examples that you guys can pull to fill out our chart. But yet again, you're going to write our example in the one box labeled simile. And in the box right next to it, you're going to explain. Maybe that simile is describing how long his nose is. Maybe that simile is describing how crazy that person's acting, or something like that. So explain why it's important to have this figurative language in maybe the movie, or of course our examples, and of course it would be in books too. Our next one is metaphor. Metaphor normally goes with simile. I'm sure you guys have heard used together simile and metaphors. And metaphor is a comparison between two things that are unrelated but which share no common characteristics. This comparison does not use like or as. So if it does use like or as, most likely it's going to be what? A simile. And if it doesn't use like or as, and it's a comparing or a comparison of two things to make a point, that would be a metaphor. And of course, similes tend to be about one sentence because it's easy to say like something. And metaphors, they can be more than one sentence. Maybe it's, a whole paragraph or 2 or 3 sentences, but sometimes it is expanded and not just one sentence to make the comparison. And metaphor, the first example we're going to look at is my brother was boiling mad. So a pot boils, it kind of makes a noise, right? And maybe if you have a top on there, the top gets blown off and the water spills out. And so you compare this to your brother, well, he's about to blow his top. He's about to get really angry and boil up and, go over the edge. Our next one, and of course if you go to your note sheet and look, it even has a description right next to it. So this is an easy cheat sheet that you guys can use on worksheets that you're going to see later in the week. Because this is the only lesson that you guys will get this week, or video lesson you'll get this week. The next one is the assignment was a breeze. Well, breezes, they're light, they're cool, maybe they're really chill, and they can be compared to like really hard wind, easy. So if an assignment was a breeze, it's easy, it's light, it's nothing to worry about, right? And so that's how using like in this instance is important. And this simile kind of is making a point, it's proving, or metaphor is making a point, versus a simile, which is directly compared, right? Okay, so now we're going to go and we're going to watch the video.
My heart's a stereo, it beats for you, so listen close. Hear my thoughts in every note. Make me your radio and turn me up when you feel low.
Turn it
This
up a little bit.
melody was meant for you, so
right
sing
there.
along to my stereo.
Two class heroes, baby.
Shot me out of the sky. You're my kryptonite. You keep making me weak. Yeah, frozen and can't breathe. Life is a highway. I wanna ride it all night long. If you're going my way, well, I wanna drive it all night long.
Which you guys make sure we're writing our examples in our boxes, and off to the side we're explaining them. But my heart's a stereo. It doesn't say like or as, and it's comparing his heart to a stereo. Well, stereos make music, they make noise. So he's saying that he's very outspoken about his feelings. And he wants someone to listen close. Okay? And that song, it's making a point, it's proving a point. Okay, our next one is personification. I love personification. This is my favorite figurative language, and hopefully you guys will like it too. So, and I'm sure you've heard it before, is a figure of speech in which a thing, an idea, or an animal is given human attributes. So it's given human qualities. How many of you guys have seen The Lion King? Probably quite a few of you. The Lion King, the lions are given human qualities. They can talk, they can laugh, they can sing songs. Some of them even walk like humans. And these are human qualities that they are given. So Simba, he can talk, and he has a daddy who he talks to. And there's a bad guy who's Scar, who also has these human qualities. Whereas in real life, can lions talk? No, they can't. And it's kind of just a way to get our attention. And Disney does a good job with personification. They also use it in Beauty and the Beast. Normally, candlesticks and time clocks, they can't talk. But Disney captures our attention by using personification, giving these items and objects personal or personalities of what? Of a human, or human qualities. And some of our examples for personification, which these are kind of more examples that are realistic and are made or done to make a picture in our head. Our first example is the wind whispered through the grass. Well, if the wind whispered through the grass, what do you think, what sound do you think that would be? It would be this kind of sound. And that kind of creates an image in your head of the grass whispering and this little quiet noise. Versus if I just said the wind was blowing through the dry grass. It doesn't capture your attention. It doesn't create as effective of an image. Another example is the flower danced in the gentle breeze. Well, that's giving human qualities to what? Flowers. It's giving human qualities to flowers. And the flowers, they danced. And, you can imagine that the wind is making the flowers sway back and forth. And it's creating another image in our head. And it is personifying the flowers. They dance. That's a human quality. And now we're going to go ahead and watch some more examples in our video.
Rabbit, what are you waiting for?
Is this gonna become a regular thing with
You know how to fix it. This is your chance.
So one of the examples in the video that we just showed that caught my attention was Ratatouille. I love this movie. I've personally watched it like 100 times. So of course this one caught my attention. And Remy the mouse, he can cook and he can talk. Those are human qualities. In real life, mice, they cannot cook and they cannot talk. But these are human qualities that you would see normally. I can cook, I can talk, and I've seen plenty of movies and real life situations when people have cooked, when people have talked. And Disney, to capture our attention, had the little mouse Remy have human qualities of cooking. And it's a really good way to capture our attention. Okay, moving on to our next figurative language is onomatopoeia. This is a really fun one, really easy, and I'm sure you guys have heard this one before. So, onomatopoeia is defined as a word that imitates the natural sounds of the things. So it's sound words. What things are described as making. Maybe I drop my cup. It makes a thud. Thud would be onomatopoeia or a sound word. Some more example would be the buzzing bee flew away. Well, what sound does a bee make? Buzz, right? And the sack fell into the river with a splash. There's another sound word. It's describing the sound that something makes entering the water, or the bee buzzing off. Another one would be the books fell on the table with a loud thump. So thump, that's our sound word, right? And some more examples. Now these are a little bit more unusual. These are sounds that animals make. It could be a cat, it could be a cow, but they're sounds that animals make. For example, meow, moo, neigh, tweet, and oink. These are all onomatopoeia words. And it's a little strange because an object is not making this noise, that the cow is actually, or the cow or the cat is actually making the noise. But it's still a noise. It's still a sound word. And now we're going to watch a video with lots of examples in it.
Onomatopoeia?
And that is a word. Why would you ever say that?
Why wouldn't you say it? Onomatopoeia, onomatopoeia. All I wanna be is an onomatopoeia.
I see you like to chew. Maybe you should chew on my fist.
The warrior said nothing, for his mouth was full. Then he swallowed. And then he spoke. Enough talk. Let's fight. Shut-a-booey! It mattered not how many foes he faced. They were no match for his bodacity.
Many comic books may use onomatopoeia to emphasize a certain sound. Take for instance this scene from the 1960s Batman series, which was based directly off of the comic book.
Curtains!
Okay, in the video, one of my favorite examples is the old Batman. I used to love those old Batmans and watch them. And maybe some of you guys have read comic books or graphic novels that have examples of this in it, where the comic book puts someone going pow when they're getting punched, or zoink, or boom. And you'll see this example in the video that we've already watched. You've seen them. And of course, if you want to go rewatch it, all of the video links will be found on your note sheet. And remember, we're supposed to be filling out our worksheets as we go along. And of course, you can all do it after the video, or you can stop and do it during the video. It's up to you. And our last one is hyperbole. I'm sure if some of you read this before or have heard of it before, you probably called it hyperbole, or maybe Super Bowl, or something like that. And it looks like hyperbole, but it's hyperbole. Hyperbole. And it is a figure of speech that involves an exaggeration or an extreme exaggeration of ideas for the sake of emphasis. So when you extremely exaggerate something, it's not going to be a little bit of exaggeration, it's going to be huge. And let's look at some of the examples, which I'm sure you guys have heard your parents say, or maybe someone else say on TV. Your suitcase weighs a ton. Well, you know that that suitcase is really heavy, because is a ton a big amount of weight or a little amount of weight? It's big. And a ton, it's a really heavy suitcase. And the next example is, she is as heavy as an elephant. Well, elephants are really big animals. They're really heavy. They can weigh over 2 tons to a ton. So we know that a human can't weigh a ton, and they can't get as big as elephants, so we know that this is an extreme exaggeration to make a point. Because if I just said she is heavy, is that making the same point as she is as heavy as an elephant? No. And also you'll notice that some of these are similes. So we're actually having figurative language sometimes can overlap. Sometimes it can be more than one thing. But right now we're just looking at her hyperbole. We're not looking at the fact that it's also a simile. The next one is, or our next example, I'm trying to solve 1 million issues these days. 1 million issues these days. Well, that's a lot. I doubt anyone's trying to solve 1 million issues. They're just saying that they're multitasking, that they're solving all these issues, a lot of issues. And it can be more than one. So
Look at that fluffy unicorn! He's so fluffy I'm gonna die! He's so fluffy!
when you smile, the whole world stops and stares for a while. 'Cause girl, you're amazing, just the way you are. Yeah, her lips, I could kiss them all day if she'd let me.
I'm hungry, Mother. I'm hungry, Mother. I'm hungry. Now, Rolly, you've just had your dinner. But I am just the same. I'm so hungry I could eat a whole elephant.
Would walk 500 miles and I would walk 500 more. The feet of man walk.
So maybe you guys can think of your own examples of these figurative language that we learned. Or maybe you can find your own on Netflix or on TV or on social media, and you guys can take a picture of it and send it to me, or a video, because I would love to see what you guys can think of these figurative languages examples. And remember, we went over 6, and we're going to have to know these, and it's going to come back in different lessons, maybe in an ed puzzle, maybe in a reading. But we're going to go over this again if you guys were a little confused. Also, feel free to send us emails. It's me and Miss Eastham, and we will answer any questions that you have about figurative language or about accessing our work. And remember, guys, all this is available on Google Classroom, and you should be able to access it. There are links for the worksheets, and there's a link to turn it in for the worksheet. Make sure that you turn the worksheet in. You do not have to turn the notes in. Those are just for you guys to look, and they will be available on Google Classroom for the next 3 weeks. So you guys can use it on a worksheet if you're struggling, or if you just want to look for your own figurative language and you need a reference or to look for, or you just needed to be reminded of something. This is for you guys to look at. And guys, I am so happy that I got to do this lesson with you, and I hope that I get to see you at some point in the future. And have a good week. Bye, guys.